Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I did something a little bit different today with today's video. I decided, coming off of this weekend of Trials of Osiris, where there's just so much talk about fusion rifles specifically, I thought it would be a good idea to sit down and interview an esteemed fusion rifle main. His name is Lego Le Flash. Lego is been a longtime friend of mine, and he is an avid fusion rifle main. And he's got a movie of the week a couple of times with some fusion rifle videos that he's done, and is sort of well known in the community for being a fusion guy. So I thought it would be a really good idea to sit down with him, do an interview, talk about the strengths of fusion rifles, talk about the counters, what are the kinds of things that he's afraid of, what things shut him down in a lobby. And this is a guy that last season became the #1 Rumble player in the community. He ascended to the #1 spot in Rumble as a fusion rifle main. And so he has a lot of experience and a lot of expertise to offer on the topic. And he approaches it really, really well. He, even at the very end, he talks about things that we can do to sort of, if we need to reel fusions in, what could they target, what kinds of things are going to stand out and maybe rise to the top. So a very interesting conversation. Feel free to stick around and engage with it, listen to it, maybe try to learn something from it so that your matches against fusion rifle users might look a little different for you. If you're having trouble with them, this might help you sort of understand how to approach those matches and come out on top. All right, here we go. Cool. Okay, so we're here with Lego, who is unequivocally a fusion rifle main. I've actually got your Crucible.report pulled up right here.
Oh no, I hope it's good.
Yeah, I mean, and it is. I mean, you're a gamer. There's no doubt about it. You're in the 3 digits for flawless tickets in Trials of Osiris, right? You're not some noob who never plays any competitive game modes. You've got a grand total right now of just under. You'll probably in your next gaming session hit it. You're just under 40,000 final blows on fusion rifles for your Destiny 2 career. You're at 39,815. So one more session, you'll probably be there.
One more dad session.
That's right, one more dad session. So, and that is by far your biggest special weapon. You know, there was a time where you did double special where you were doing sniper fusion. And so sniper's your next most used special weapon there. But and I remember that was an interesting time. Not a little more difficult, I think, to do now these days. Yeah.
I am leaning into in quick play the double special, the double fusion now that it's available.
Now you got that, the raid one.
We'll see what comes of that.
I got a real fun roll on that fusion yesterday, actually, while raiding. So I'll have to give it a shot. But yeah. So I figured you would be like the person to talk to. You've even got a movie of the week for a fusion rifle video that you did one time, yeah?
That is true. A few, basically, I'm kind of embarrassed that like most of them do include majority fusion stuff. Like, there's no, some people come here and complain like another fusion video. So it's okay that I'm a fusion guy. Like I can accept that labeling.
That's right. That's right. And you kind of have to, just full send, be like, you know what? Yeah. Hey, all you want. This is what I am. This is what I enjoy. This is what I do. So
yeah.
So I've got a few questions here that I wanted to pitch to you, and then have some more open conversation about some follow-up stuff afterwards. But the first question I wanted to ask you is, where do you think fusion rifles are strong? Like when you go into a lobby, what maps are you like yes, or what conditions are you like yes? What sort of environments are really conducive to fusion rifle play?
Yeah, I feel like I'm actually pretty particular about it because I'm so aware of lanes. I feel like that is like what I'm thinking about when I go into a map is like what are the lanes looking like? Whereas like one off the top of my head that I'm like I really like playing on this map is risky is Twilight Gap, which I know a lot of people have different feelings about it, but there's so many boxes and areas for shotgunners to get close to you, or even just the verticality of it.
Yeah, lots of up and down.
Matter a lot. And verticality is like bad for a fusion rifle player. Like at least that's my opinion of it. Is there's too many areas for somebody to quickly get to you, and you want to leave that space, that lane, to be able to predict what they're gonna do. And there's more unpredictability when there's so many obstacles in the way. So even we had Endless Veil. this weekend, and I do love areas of that one, but also the jump up spot
That's
can be
exactly
so
right.
particular for fusions, and so I tend to like, okay, let me stay in this lane
I would
other
play
than
toilet or mid, yeah.
yeah.
No, I definitely hear you there. So on the flip side of that, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, like what conditions are you like, oh no, you know what I mean, where you're like, this is going to be a challenge, and not just map, like also when you're inspecting the enemy team, what sorts
Oh
of
yeah.
builds and exotics and weapons and kits are you like, ooh, this will be tough?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because as I was thinking about this, I was like, the things that I'm afraid of are the people who are afraid of me, who complain about me on Twitter, I feel like, or it's the slug shotties, it's the hand cannons, but it's all about the way that they play. I feel
Yeah,
like not, if they're, I'll tell you what I do love. I love playing another fusion rifle player. That's
yeah,
my favorite thing to play against, just because I'm like, okay, I know this. I know exactly what they're gonna do.
yeah.
But whenever there is high mobility attached to the class in some way, which you see a lot, stompy hunters, but high mobility, if there's a warlock that looks really solid that's on Dawnblade, I'm
Mm,
like, oh, well, hold up. How's this person going to be moving? And then just recently, very recently, Titans and high mobility as well, which is something that I don't spec into, but I've on a Titan, but I'm leaning more towards it now that the more I'm processing it and the
yeah.
new ways that people are playing with the new shoulder charge rebuilds. So those would be what I'd be top most afraid of.
So what are the hard counters? I've got a list of
Ah,
things
yes.
that I use as hard counters, but I want to hear from you.
I
What are
can't
your
wait to
hard
hear.
counters? Yeah.
I can't wait to hear yours too. Okay, so my hard counters are definitely movement. Like everything boils down to movement and how aggressive they're playing or passively they're playing. The When some of them becomes unpredictable in some way, whether that's getting off radar using the hunter boots that will take my radar away to help, like that is detracting
Oh,
from the
sure.
way that I'm reading them. So that would be one way, but more so than that, I think their movement, as I was saying earlier, like a hunter that doesn't have the strafe jump on but has the triple jump on with the stompies is someone who I'm like, okay, they jumped and I'm leading the shot and then they jump again right when I fire, that
That's
sort of
right.
thing. That sort of stuff just will throw you off so bad. Or a dodge at just the right time. I had, whenever I was going for last season, the #1 Rumble player, I would face the same people a lot, and there were certain things that really threw me off. And so I could dive into two of those real quick. One of them was a hunter who was running the arc blade subclass that gave you, or arc staff, where when they dodged, they had damage resistance, and so they would slide in and dodge out at just the right moment when my fusion fired, and I
Yeah.
would hit all my bolts sometimes, but it just wasn't enough. Or like some of them would miss with the aim assist coming off, and then they would shotgun me. Like there was just no chance. They just
Right. Cuz then
immediately had me on
you've
target.
got to full commit to another charge, or you've got to switch to your primary. That's right.
Exactly. And then the second one, which that person was great and used it to great effect. And then the other one would be and this is something that I saw you do in your video, and I was like, oh my gosh, you nailed it. This is the thing. There was one guy, and we started messaging each other. That was one of the fun things about that experience,
Yeah.
was just playing the same people all the time. You start messaging each other and like,
Sure.
okay, what are you doing? And it was someone using the Antaeus Wards to, it was just a perfect, I can't even express my inability to fight against it.
Yeah.
When they would charge around a corner, we both knew each other were coming, and I nailed his approach, and he was just far enough away where it would have been a perfect kill, and the Antaeus reflects it back, and even if it doesn't hit me, he's close enough at that point
That's right.
where I can't get in off another charge, and
Mhm.
I'm dead in the water.
That's absolutely right. And I had made that video last season where I said, listen, if you're having trouble with fusions, this is a build where you can literally go in with the intent to ruin a fusion rifle user's day and be successful every time. Um,
Yep.
and Antaeus Wards are just so good at it. So much so that I literally I have a very hard time taking them off when I play Titan now, because and it's not even just about fusion rifles,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also about slug shotguns. I kill people with their
Yep.
own chaperones. It's about Yallerhorn, and I literally on stream the other day I saw Heavy came up on burnout, and I was by the C flag, right? Heavy's up, and I see in the feed that so and so picked up rocket ammo. An enemy picked up rocket
No
ammo,
way.
and I literally said, because I know that Yallarhorn is by a landslide the most used heavy weapon in Crucible right now. I said, "Watch me reflect this Yallarhorn," and sure enough, I round the corner. He turns, I slide. He shoots the rocket, and I reflect it back and got a double kill off of his own Yallarhorn. And I was like, I felt like Babe
Man.
Ruth, man. I was like, I called my shot and everything. So it is.
Jeez.
So let me give you my list of hard counters here.
Yes, I want to hear him.
Antaeus Ward was my number one.
Yeah,
Like if you're,
for sure.
and I know a lot of people in that video were like, "Well, I'm not a Titan. Don't worry. There's options. There's definitely options." But my number one hard counter is Antaeus Wards. And once you learn how to time your slides, the only thing about Antaeus Wards that's a bummer is the fact that they have not fixed the misadventure glitch yet. There are times where you will perfectly time it. You'll slide, the shield comes up, and you'll get hit with damage. And it doesn't even have to be enough damage to kill you. It could be, a hand cannon body shot that was going to do 40 damage. But for some reason, the game just has a hard time processing it. I don't know what exactly happens, but sometimes you will just fall over dead, and it'll say misadventure. It won't even credit the other player with a kill. Very weird. It doesn't happen all the time, but it'll happen every now and then. Yeah. Other than that, some of my other hard counters include Axion Bolts, because fusion riflers are oftentimes, they have to commit to that charge up, and they're thinking about prediction. And one of the things that will really mess them up is forcing them to move, because you can't sprint and charge a fusion rifle at the same time.
It goes back to what I was saying about the lanes. Like, I'm setting up for that lane, and the Axion Bolt disrupts that, like you're saying.
That's exactly right. And especially if you're running, the
main ingredient, like a long charge time.
That's right. And you've got to commit to it. That's a major disruption to your plan and to your TTK options there. So you, as a fusion rifler, and I've been in this situation too, when an Axion Bolt disrupts that, I have a decision to make. I can either tank it and be like, I'm just gonna be absolute, it's gonna pop my shields, and I'm gonna be here weak, and and I'll just choose to tank it and roll the dice. Or I have to turn my back and run. I can't backpedal, because you can't outrun an Axion Bolt backpedaling. So I got to turn my back, and that is your opportunity. If you are playing as a fusion rifler, you throw the Axion Bolt, you see the radar ping, they're moving. That's when you jump on it and you chase. And you know that if they turn to challenge you, they're going to be weak, because they're going to get hit by the Axion Bolt. So, you can hit them with your SMG. Your TTK now is dramatically reduced, so your chances of trading or winning that duel are much greater. So Axion Bolts are one of my hard counters.
Can I guess one of the next ones?
Shoot.
Because it's in the same vein. Is Skip Nades one of them? Because it does essentially the same thing.
Sure.
I feel like that lines up in the same vein. I'm not sure, but whenever I'm playing a team of like multiple Skip Nades, it kind of has the same effects of Axion Bolts. But the cool thing about Axion Bolts is it's available from every class now.
That's right. That's why I put it on the list, is that it doesn't matter what class you're running. You can run Axion Bolts and totally disrupt a fusion rifle, especially if they're running firmly planted. That firmly planted God rolls that Zer's been handed out for Timeline's Vertex and for the main ingredient. If they're on their knees, an Axion Bolt is gonna hit them. They can't outrun it. So, anyways, and so then if they're on the run vooping, they're losing a lot of the utility of that perk, and so their accuracy is going to be different because of it. Another thing, cold snap grenades, especially with the new Osmium C, the Osmium C gloves for Warlocks. But cold snap grenades are a really good way of flushing out fusion rifle players too, because with that, it's like, it's not going to do damage, really, but it's going to freeze them. So you literally get a free kill on somebody. If they don't run and that cold snap hits them, it's a free kill. But otherwise, they have to turn their back, and that's your opportunity. You don't even have to kill them. But if you're on Endless Veil and you're holding the cubbies, and I throw a cold snap in there, and you got to move, I have mid control now. Even if I don't get the kill on you, now you're dealing with me on higher ground, higher elevation on that jump up. I've got mid control, I've got heavy control, whatever. So that's a great way to disrupt fusion rifle users. Another one was the new renewal grasps for hunters, the new exotic gauntlets for the hunters that make the dust field grenades
Yes.
enormous, enormous. That's a really good way of because fusion rifling also kind of goes hand in hand with zone control. The more zone
Hmm.
control you have with a fusion rifle, the more power you have. And if I can force you to move and vacate the space that you're in or punish you for staying, same thing as these other grenades. These giant dust fields are great at that. On top of that, you get damage resistance. So if
Yep.
I throw down my dust field grenade up on B and jump into it, there's a pretty good chance I can jump into that my own dust field grenade, exchange shots with you, and your one Voop won't be enough to kill me. If maybe you only landed 4 bolts, whatever, depending on the archetype, I can
Yep.
tank it, and come out on top. So that's
It's
an
so underutilized right now. I'm really surprised how little people are running that right now, because when I did face it in trials this weekend, I was like, okay, I gotta like really think, like it's messing up every plan that I have, every
that's
dust
right.
field, and they get them back so
That's
fast
right.
too if you build into it. I think that one's very viable and very slept on right now.
Absolutely. And I think people are going to start catching on. And I don't think it's
Yeah,
going to take long either. I think it's
no,
I
I don't
think
either.
I think next week you're going to see the usage rate of those things just go all the way up cuz there's so many people already who used it this weekend and were like, "Guys, listen. It's so
Hmm.
good." And so this week you got people checking the lost sectors every day to see when those gauntlets are up, and they're going to be going in there and getting those. You're going to see some more of those renewal grasps, I think, next week. The other thing is the last thing that's on my list of hard counters would be anything that gives you, and you touched on this a little bit as well, directional change abilities.
Yep.
Hunters are the strongest in this regard because they have on command immediate directional change on the ground and in the air. Um, and one of the things you mentioned specifically is something that I, as someone who uses fusion rifles frequently too, also get really frustrated at is when a hunter is in the air, I commit to the charge, and then they use another jump, right?
Ah,
And they
yes.
change directions, and my whole Voop is thrown off, right? If
Uh-huh.
I let the gun discharge, um, it's not all gonna hit. Maybe I get 1 bolt or none of them if they time it correctly, which is not that hard to do, honestly.
Yep.
And it happened to me enough times that I thought I need to start doing this intentionally when I'm on my hunter. And now I do. It's
Hmm.
something that I intentionally do because I was on the other side of it so much. Now when I play hunter, I'm very cognizant of when I am airborne going against a fusion rifler. If I hear the charge, and you can hear it, if I hear that charge, I'm going to use my directional change in the air on command
Yep.
to completely throw that off, and it works.
It
It's a
works.
very
Yep.
simple thing that works. And like you said as well, the dodge roll on the ground, the directional change,
Hmm.
very strong.
That's one
Uh
of the reasons I feel like hunters are at the top of the list for, like, if you want to really get rid of a fusion player, really throw them off. Hunters are at the top of that list, but I do feel like you're about to get into, Warlock and Titans have some good abilities as well for this.
yeah. So then with warlocks, obviously, top tree Dawnblade is a great hard
Hmm.
counter because you can, if you are a seasoned top tree Dawnblade user, you have directional change both in the air and on the ground.
Yep.
Um, so if you know the mechanics of how the input commands work for Icarus Dash, you can do ground dashes.
Mm.
Um, and there's 2 different ground dashes that you can do. So you have some options. So if you haven't looked up any guides on how to use Top Tree Dawnblade, do it if you wanna learn how to counter fusions because your directional change capacity is pretty high no matter where you are on the map, whether you're up in the air or on the ground. Um, and it's the same thing as Hunter. You listen for the charge and you do your unpredictable movement on command to throw that off, and that's a great option too. Um, Celestial Fire is really a nice choice too because Celestial Fire you can throw and hit people on corners, and that'll make fusion
Right.
riflers really start to think about whether or not they want to commit because fusion rifle users are going to
Hmm.
play close to cover. At least they're probably going to try to, so they can get their charge behind cover and then peek out and discharge. So they're playing
Not
really.
only
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, not only that, but like once you have a little bit of health down as a rifle player, you're really debating on making that push, not just because like, oh, I'm hurt, like what's gonna happen next, but like that puts you in a range that's a closer kill or a longer kill distance for a shotgun player. So if
Mhm.
you're playing against a shotgun player and you're weak at all, you're like, my idea of how far away I can be is totally thrown off at
That's
that
right.
point.
Because you're expecting, as a fusion rifle user, you're expecting to take some damage every time you
Hmm.
go for a kill. Because you're committing to that charge time and the
Right.
discharge. So you're expecting, well, I'm going to take a little bit of damage. I'm going to make it up on the discharge, come out on top, and then go heal up. So if you're already weak, that affects how much damage you can tank before you discharge the
Hmm.
gun. No doubt about it. So that was obviously you touched on the Titan as well, having some new movement options with the shoulder charge, and I think people are not leaning into that as heavily as they should
No,
and could,
no, not at all.
because it's a big boost of movement, and it is hard to track. Um,
And you
as
get it back really fast. Like you can do it back to back pretty quickly if you just kind of jump in the air as a Titan and turn around while still pushing forward. You'll be able to go back the other direction you just came from too.
Yeah,
Like you could essentially make them with 2 shots if you're really on top of your movement.
that's right.
But I have been leaning into that more, even for map control, which is something that I didn't get into earlier, but with the lanes and everything, there's a lot of teamwork that can come into countering a fusion and using longer distances, which I know a lot of Crucible players aren't in favor of. But with the new scout rifle from Trials out, I was playing around with that on Endless Vale, and if there was a team of 3 main ingredient users and they were kind of piled up in one area with barricades and stuff, and looking at my shotgun and my sniper player teammates in a different lane, I would just hard counter all the way to the other side
Hmm.
with the scout and actually be able to throw them off enough for my shotgunner to get in, and then the fusions don't have time to charge up, that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
distant, like the exact opposite of the way you think you would play, can work out as well. And using that Titan mobility to like get there faster, any of these mobilities to get places faster helps with that.
yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, I feel like we've had some really good discussion on counters and strategies. But the state of fusion rifles right now, I understand full well that you have a little bit of preference bias here, and
Yeah, of
that's
course.
totally okay. Everybody comes from a different position. But we've heard a lot of arguments against fusion rifles this past weekend on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of preference bias. I've seen a lot of people with 100,000 shotgun kills on the Crucible report complaining about
Uh-huh.
fusion rifles, and they've got 2,000 fusion rifle kills. So there's preference bias on that side too. But on your end of it, what is your assessment of the situation with Trials of Osiris on Endless Vale, where main ingredient is the most used gun?
Yeah.
How do you explain that? And would you argue that main ingredient is OP? Is it the best fusion rifle in the game? Does it need to be tuned? Do they all need to be tuned? What's your
Oh
assessment?
man. Honestly, so I'll take this one at a time because I have overall thoughts about it. But so main ingredient, obviously, it's super popular because Zer sold, essentially a god roll for the main ingredient this past weekend. So everybody and their mom is picking it up and using it right away because they're like, everybody's saying this is great. All the perks line up. It's great, and it is forgiving. It's that archetype of fusion rifle is very forgiving. Is it OP, I personally don't even use the main ingredient. Like I picked it up, I played around for a game and I was like, not for me. Because I have grown into loving the rapid fires so much
Mm-hmm.
that is a counter in it of itself to main ingredient. That's something we didn't even go into, but fusions countering fusions. The faster they've reworked the way charge time works, and the faster you lean into that, the more chance you have of countering a shotgunner. It's not as forgiving and it's not as easy to use. I have a lot of people coming to me being like, "Hey, I tried out your build and I just can't hit anything. It's just tough. You got to get used. It takes a while to get used to it."
Yeah.
Which dove into the rapid fires with the Adagio perk and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can,
Some
or a lot
tricky
of different
stuff you
ways to
can
use
play
it.
with, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, do I think it's the best fusion rifle? Do I think it's OP? Maybe fusions might need to be looked at in the future for sure. Like, I'm not against. Like, there's some crazy stuff, and I've been able to do some crazy stuff with all the new perks in the pool. But do I think it's the best fusion? That's a hard no. I don't. Because there's some scarier stuff coming. Honestly, people need to get ready. Not everybody's gonna have it, and it's not gonna be as available. But the new Plug One Adept is gonna have successful warm up on it. That comes later this season, and I'm scared for what that's going to look like. But there a lot of people are talking about Snorri too right now, which not a lot of people are using, but people are saying it feels really solid. I haven't put as much time into it because I'm so on board with rapid fires, but there's just a lot of other options. Even from last season, Cartesian Coordinate is fantastic. And so
I'm a Zealot's Reward fan.
Zealot's Reward too, yeah. I've played against somebody using that as well this weekend. Amazing gun. So main ingredient's not the best. It's the most accessible for sure. It's very forgiving, and so it's easy for a player to pick up. But shotgunners can counter. I know shotgunners are the ones making this complaint probably more, but it is the better counter for the longer charge times, all the movement stuff that we've broken down here. The way that you can shut down map control and then push in with the shotgunner because they have that longer charge time. I think that will stay the main complaint, but I don't think it's the most OP because the charge time's so long. There will always be a counter. The rapid fires are honestly the ones that if people pick up on and people start using with the accelerated charge times and all the
just
perks,
you wait.
that is going to be the thing that would drive the community insane. We're just not there yet. Not as many people have picked up on it, but once. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it won't because it is harder to use. Some of the new perks like Adagio, like you were talking about in Successful Warm-Up, they require a degree of understanding of those perks and like how the timing changes that even I am having, like, who have used fusion rifles since the beginning of D1, almost, like not exclusively, but a lot. I'm struggling with, okay, my charge time is changing. And having to play fusion rifles in this new way that's really aggressive and really amazing and really strong, but it's almost so much of a change that I have to slow down and be like, what am I doing right now?
It requires a little more foresight and thought, in real time.
That would be my take, is that, I think that there will be more complaints coming down the road, but ultimately this stuff will die down as accessibility to something like the main ingredient, and we get other strong weapons throughout the season. And if people do pick up on the things that are really, really scary, like maybe the new Plug One with Successful Warm-Up, charge time, Masterwork, and Adept charge time, that sort of stuff, or the rapid fires, then we could see a situation where I see fusion rifles getting adjusted. But Bungie's done stuff before where because something is so obnoxious, like they've said with grenade launchers, like it's not fun sometimes to play against a lobby of grenade launchers. Even if I was in a conversation with a few people from the community that were talking about, even if there's just one grenade launcher in a lobby that is causing, havoc, which we don't see that much right now, but in past seasons it can feel just so oppressive. And if it gets that way with fusion rifles, we could see Bungie making some adjustments. And honestly, they're really strong right now. And if they do adjust it, I would be, they've been adjusted so many times throughout the years.
Sure.
We'll learn, we'll adapt. So I could see it happening. Do I think it's OP? Maybe some of the rapid fires might be, but not as many people are using them. So
sure. Well, interesting takes. Well, I do genuinely appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit down with me and talk through some of this stuff and to let the community sort of peek under the hood and into the mechanics and the specifics here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the next time we get to catch up and chat.
And I look forward to the next fusion rifle video.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm going to stay out of hot water and not make any for a little bit. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate you. And we'll catch you in the next video.